Right, let's go back to the protests that have been taking place in Charlotte, North Carolina, following the police shooting of Keith Lamont Scott on Tuesday night. For more on this, we are joined from New York by Andrew Jarrell Jones. He's the host of WBAI Radio and political and cultural journalist. Mr. Jones, very good to have you with us on Al Jazeera. I know that you're very familiar with North Carolina. What do you make of what's going on there?
Well, it's great to be with you, Stephanie. And this is just a result of the tension rising, not only from the shooting of Mr. Scott, but from years of tension in the community in regards to police relations with the black community and with minorities in general. And what we're seeing right now is a clear tipping point, a clear zenith of this tension, of this boiling contention between the community and the police. And we're seeing it transpiring throughout the night with, sadly, one civilian getting killed, albeit through another civilian, and a police officer getting injured. So this is the result of not only of what took place on Tuesday evening, but what has taken place for many years throughout the history of Charlotte.
Let's start with the latest events and the shooting, the Tuesday shooting of Keith Lamont Scott, because we don't actually know what's happened yet. Police are saying that he had a gun. His family is saying he was reading a book. I mean, two completely different accounts. We can't, as the public, know what's happened until the police video is released. So how important is it at this moment that that video is released and we can see what happened?
Well, it is so essential to knowing what actually took place, because we've already had another case of a they said, where honestly no one knows what happened outside of the policeman that did the shooting in terms of what happened on Tuesday with Mr. Scott, because only he knows what took place in that tragic episode. Right now we have the family standing firm on their story, and we have the local police standing firm on the story. And what makes this even more complex is that the police that did the shooting, the officer that did the shooting, he is a black American as well, and the police chief of Charlotte is black as well. But still, that does not stop communities and black communities and a lot of activists overall against police from continuing their protests, no matter what the color of the police officer that does the shooting and the questionable shooting of an unarmed black person or armed black person in this situation that could be the case. So that does not stop the protest whatsoever just because an officer happens to be the same race of the person he had to shoot.
No, and that is something that we have actually seen quite often in the last few years since the death of Trayvon Martin has really, shed light on police killings of black men in the United States. Often the police officers have actually been of color themselves. So what needs to be done then now, do you think? Because it's been 4 years of the Black Lives Matter movement. There have been so many more killings, so few officers involved have been indicted or charged. What needs to happen now, do you think?
Well, Stephanie, I have a lot of close family in Charlotte, particularly my uncle, who's a pastor down there who works on community relations. And one thing that he's expressed, as well as many people throughout Charlotte and across the country for black people and activists in general, is a distrust that they have in regards to the police community, especially when full accountability is the case. One particular episode that has led fuel to the fire of what is taking place in Charlotte right now is the shooting of Jonathan Ferrell, a 24-year-old black college student, or a recent black graduate college student at the time, who one night he had gotten into a bad car crash and was seeking help, and he tried to tap on the door of a fellow citizen to see if they could assist him in his need of help. And what happened was, it turned out to be a lady who was white who thought that he was actually going to rob her while he was banging on the door. So she called the cops, and unfortunately the officer that came to the situation, Robert Carrick, actually shot Farrell, who was unarmed. Now, the police department condemned the shooting of Kenrick on Farrell, and people in Charlotte really thought that this would finally be justice, that this was a clear-cut case, that justice would take place. Unfortunately, Officer Kerrick never served a day in jail for the shooting, and in fact still served on the police force up to last October. In fact, ironically enough, the one-year anniversary of him resigning from the police force because of the contentious issue of him not spending a day in jail and him getting a mistrial in his case led to so much protest in Charlotte and has been a cause as another reason why everything is transpiring right now.
Yeah, I think there have been something like 6 deaths of civilians by police officers just in Charlotte this year. Andrew Jarrell Jones, radio host, joining us from New York. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.